Welcome to Declassified Deep Dive, where unredacted files reveal hidden truths. Let's uncover the secrets. I'm your host, Raj, and each week we explore a new secret deep dive.
Right, so get this, Operation Mockingbird. Um, you sent us a bunch of stuff about it, this like massive CIA plot to, basically control the media. And honestly, it sounds kind of like straight out of some spy thriller.
Yeah, you provided quite a variety of material from that declassified CIA file on Project Mockingbird to articles, Wikipedia entries. I mean, it's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, and Wikipedia even calls Operation Mockingbird like a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
So like right off the bat, red flags, murky territory, right? But then we also have this actual CIA file about something called Project Mockingbird from 1963, and this one involves wiretapping. So like, are these two separate things with like the same name?
It certainly seems that way, and that's where I think the confusion begins. So maybe the best approach here is to start with the concrete evidence. So that declassified CIA file on Project Mockingbird from 1963.
Okay, yeah, let's dive into that. What exactly was the CIA up to back then?
Well, the file focuses on two journalists, Robert Allen and Paul Scott. They wrote this syndicated column called the Allen Scott Report. And the CIA was concerned because they had published articles containing classified information. So they were determined to find the leak.
Oh, so hold on. The CIA was like spying on journalists to like uncover their sources. That's kind of like a big deal, right?
It was then, and it still raises a lot of questions about press freedom even today. So the file says that the CIA believed the leak was coming from someone within their own ranks, potentially from the Office of National Estimates. And to identify the source, they actually wiretapped Allen and Scott's homes and offices for 3 months in 1963.
And did they find the leak?
Ironically, no. The operation, which they codenamed Project Mockingbird, failed to identify the source within the CIA. But here's where it gets interesting. They uncovered this brawling network of the journalists' sources, which included government officials, lobbyists, retired officers, even, get this, a priest. Some pretty high-profile names are mentioned in there, too.
Wait, a priest? Okay, now that's intriguing. I mean, what kind of information would a priest be leaking to journalists?
Yeah, well, the file, it doesn't go into specifics about what each source provided, but it does show the lengths that journalists go to cultivate relationships and to gather information. And it shows that their sources came from these really diverse backgrounds and positions of influence.
Okay, so they didn't find the CIA leak within like this network of sources. So what happened? Did they like just keep spying on these journalists?
No, according to the file, the operation was terminated when the CIA's director of security retired. And it also states that the operation was highly compartmentalized. Very few people knew about it, even within the CIA. Apparently only a handful of top officials were aware of it.
But the file, it also mentions that the director briefed the Attorney General, the Secretary of Defense, and the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. I mean, that doesn't seem like a very limited circle, does it?
That's a good point. It does seem like a kind of a contradiction. Perhaps there are different levels of awareness, within the government, or maybe those briefings occurred after the operation was terminated. The file isn't totally clear on that.
Okay, so this CIA file gives us this specific example of the CIA monitoring journalists in 1963. But what about those broader claims of Operation Mockingbird, like this alleged large-scale program to influence the media? Do any of the other sources we have shed light on that?
Yeah, and this is where things get a bit more complex. So the Church Committee, which investigated CIA activities in the 1970s, they did find evidence of relationships between the CIA and journalists.
So there was like a connection.
There were connections, for sure. The Church Committee, they identified 50 journalists who had official yet secret relationships with the CIA. But the big question is, the nature of those relationships. I mean, were they limited to, just information sharing, or did they involve, the CIA planting stories and using journalists, for propaganda? That remains a subject of debate.
And this is where those Operation Mockingbird theories come in, right?
Yeah.
The people suspecting something more sinister going on. Do we have any specific examples of that happening?
Well, in 1977, Carl Bernstein, who was one of the journalists who exposed the Watergate scandal, published this explosive article in Rolling Stone magazine, claiming that over 400 journalists had secretly worked for the CIA. He even named some big names like the publisher of the New York Times and Time magazine.
Wow, that's a huge claim.
Yeah.
Did any official investigations confirm what Bernstein was alleging?
Not definitively. The Church Committee's report is the most extensive investigation that we have, and while it acknowledges relationships between the CIA and journalists, it doesn't go as far as Bernstein's claims. This remains a highly debated topic with evidence that's open to interpretation.
So we have this one specific CIA operation targeting journalists, the Church Committee's findings, and Bernstein's explosive allegation. I'm starting to feel like we're going down like a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories here.
Yeah, well, it's understandable why people are drawn to these theories. I mean, the idea of powerful agencies secretly manipulating the media is, well, it's unsettling, to say the least.
Absolutely. I mean, it makes you question everything you read and hear, right? Like, if we can't be sure where the information's coming from, how can we trust anything?
Yeah, that's a crucial point, and it highlights the potential danger here. I mean, distrust in the media can have a corrosive effect on democracy, so it's essential to critically evaluate information, but we also need to avoid getting swept up in unsubstantiated conspiracy theories.
So where does that leave us? Are we any closer to like understanding the truth about Operation Mockingbird? Well, I think we've made some progress. We've distinguished between Project Mockingbird, the documented 1963 wiretapping operation, and Operation Mockingbird, the broader, alleged program. We've also seen evidence that the CIA did have relationships with journalists, although the extent and the nature of those relationships are still debated.
And just to make things even more confusing, you also sent us information about this UK fostering program called the Mockingbird program. Talk about a name with multiple meanings, right?
Yeah, it seems the name Mockingbird has been used in some very different contexts. It raises some interesting questions about how a name can take on a life of its own and become associated with vastly different ideas. Okay, so we've examined the CIA file detailing Project Mockingbird, explored the broader context of the CIA and the media, and even touched upon the UK's Mockingbird program. But now we need to address the ethical elephant in the room here. I mean, is it ever justified for intelligence agencies to use journalists? What are the arguments for and against such actions?
That's a great question, and one that has sparked debate among journalists, intelligence officials, and ethicists for decades. Fortunately, the material you've provided does offer some contrasting perspectives on this very complex issue.
Perfect. Let's delve into those perspectives in part 2 of our deep dive.
So let's start with a perspective that sees some advantages in CIA journalist relationships. Kenneth Adelman, he served as director of the Arms Control and Disarmament Agency under President Reagan, and he argued that journalists, they can offer valuable insights and access to information that intelligence agencies might not otherwise have.
So Adelman's suggesting that journalists could act as unofficial informants for the CIA. I mean, that seems like a slippery slope, right?
Well, he didn't necessarily use the term informants, but he did see potential for collaboration. He believed that journalists, especially those working overseas, often have deep knowledge of local politics, culture, events, information that could be valuable to intelligence agencies. He even argued that such collaboration could allow journalists to contribute to national security.
Okay, I can see how that argument might be appealing to some, especially those who prioritize national security above all else. But what about the risks to journalistic integrity? I mean, can journalists really maintain objectivity and independence if they're working with intelligence agencies?
That's a key concern for many journalists, and several of the sources address this directly. Bob Woodward, for example, one of the journalists who exposed the Watergate scandal, he emphasized the need for separation, a clear separation between journalism and intelligence gathering.
Makes sense given Woodward's career. I mean, he built his reputation on like uncovering government secrets, not keeping them.
Exactly. Woodward believes that journalists have this fundamental duty to, report the truth without fear or favor, and that any entanglement with intelligence agencies could compromise that mission.
And it's not just about journalistic integrity either, right? I mean, there was some serious safety concerns too.
Right.
If a journalist is perceived as working with the CIA, they could, they could become a target for, hostile governments or groups.
That's a valid concern, and we have a pretty powerful example of this in your sources. Nick Daniloff, he was a correspondent for U.S. News and World Report, and he was arrested, accused of espionage by the KGB, back in 1986. He was caught up in this complicated situation that involved materials intended for the CIA being planted in his mailbox.
Wow, his story sounds like something straight out of a spy film. That must have been a terrifying experience.
It certainly highlights the very real dangers that journalists can face when their work intersects with espionage. Daniloff's experience led him to believe that any association with intelligence agencies, even if it's just perceived, it can put journalists at risk and severely damage their credibility.
Okay, so we have Adelman arguing that journalists can play this positive role in intelligence gathering, while Woodward and Daniloff they emphasize the risks to objectivity, independence, and safety. What about the other perspectives in our sources? Where do they fall on this spectrum?
Well, we have some strong opinions from journalists who had direct experiences with the CIA. Jack Anderson, he was a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist known for his hard-hitting reporting, and he believed that any involvement with intelligence agencies is fundamentally unethical.
Well, given Anderson's reputation, for challenging authority, I imagine he viewed the CIA with like a great deal of suspicion.
Yeah, Anderson was definitely known for his adversarial relationship with the CIA. He believed that their methods and goals, they often clashed with the principles of a free press, and he argued that journalists should never be used as tools for espionage or propaganda, and that any cooperation with intelligence agencies would inevitably erode public trust in the media.
That's a powerful argument,
Yeah.
and it aligns with the concerns we've already discussed, right? About objectivity, independence, and safety. What about Ted Koppel? He's a respected journalist with a long and distinguished career covering international affairs. What's his perspective?
Well, Koppel shares Anderson's belief that any involvement with intelligence agencies, it compromises journalistic integrity. He argues that even the perception of a connection to the CIA can taint a journalist's reputation and make it incredibly difficult to report objectively, especially in regions where there's already a high level of suspicion towards foreign espionage.
So we have this clear consensus from these journalists that any association with CIA is harmful to their profession. But is there ever like a situation where cooperation might be justified? For example, what about cases involving terrorism or imminent threats to national security? Does anyone in our sources address that?
Yeah, Adelman, he raises that very point. He suggests that in extreme situations, it might be necessary for the CIA to utilize journalists to gather vital information that could save lives or prevent catastrophic events. He uses the example of a journalist who might have access to information about a terrorist plot involving a weapon of mass destruction.
I could see how someone might be persuaded by that argument, but even in those like extreme cases, wouldn't it be better to like rely on official intelligence channels rather than jeopardizing the credibility and the safety of journalists.
Well, that's the core of this debate, right? Those who advocate for a complete ban on CIA journalist relationships, they argue that even in rare exceptions, they set a dangerous precedent and they weaken this fundamental principle of a free and independent press.
So it seems like we have this ethical tug of war between the potential benefits of intelligence gathering and the risks to journalistic integrity, safety, and public trust. It's a complex issue without easy answers. Really makes you think about how we, as consumers of information, navigate this potential minefield of hidden agendas and covert operations.
That's a crucial question, and it's one we'll explore further in the final part of our deep dive.
It's like we've uncovered this tangled web, right, of relationships between journalists and these intelligence agencies, and it really makes you wonder, how can we even tell like what's real anymore, especially with all this talk about fake news and misinformation these days. I mean, it's easy to feel like we're being played, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge to navigate the information landscape these days, but it's not impossible. We can learn to be more discerning, right, about the news we consume, and that starts with critical thinking.
Okay, critical thinking. It sounds like one of those things everyone says is like important, but no one really explains like how to actually how to do it. So how can we actually like use it?
Yeah.
When we're reading the news.
Well, it's simpler than you might think. Basically, it boils down to asking yourself a few key questions whenever you come across a news story or a piece of information. First, consider the source, like who's presenting this information and what might their motivations be.
So, like, if I'm reading an article on some like random website I've never even heard of, I should be more skeptical than if I'm reading an article from, say, like the New York Times.
Exactly. Established news organizations, they have a history, right? A reputation, and usually fact-checking processes in place. Now, that doesn't mean they're perfect, of course, but they're generally more reliable than obscure sources or anonymous sources.
But even with like well-known news organizations, we've seen cases of bias, sometimes even outright fabrication. So how can we tell if we're being like fed a slanted perspective or even propaganda?
Well, that's where the next level of critical thinking comes in. Look for evidence and corroboration. Does the information align with what you already know about the topic? Are other credible sources reporting the same story?
So don't just take one source at face value. You got to like do your own research and see if the information like holds up right.
Exactly, and be wary of sources that rely heavily on emotional appeals or present information in a way that seems designed to manipulate you or to provoke outrage.
Ah, the good old clickbait strategy. It seems like everyone's vying for our attention with these sensational headlines.
Yeah.
And shocking images.
Yeah, it's a constant battle for our attention, and that's why it's so crucial to be mindful of how information is presented to us, like who benefits from our clicks, our shares, our engagement.
And this brings us back to Operation Mockingbird. Even if we can't like definitively prove or disprove a grand CIA conspiracy. I mean, the whole controversy it serves as a reminder, right, to be vigilant and to question what we see and hear.
Absolutely, the possibility, right, of intelligence agencies influencing the media, whether directly or indirectly. It should encourage us to be more critical about the information we consume. It's not about being paranoid or distrusting everything. It's about engaging with the news in a more informed and discerning way.
So we're not saying that everyone needs to become like an amateur detective or a conspiracy theorist, but a healthy dose of skepticism and critical thinking, it can go a long way, right? In separating fact from fiction.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And keep in mind, even the most credible sources, I mean, they can make mistakes or present a biased perspective. So it's up to each of us, right, to be aware of those potential pitfalls and to approach the news with a critical eye.
So what we've learned from this deep dive, right, into Operation Mockingbird, it goes beyond just the specific allegations and the historical events. It's about understanding the power of information and the importance of being active, engaged, and discerning when it comes to consuming the news.
Well said. I think perhaps the most important takeaway is simply this: don't be afraid to question everything, dig deeper, seek out multiple perspectives, and be wary of claims that seem too good to be true or too outrageous to believe. In a world that's overflowing with information, critical thinking is our most valuable tool.
And on that note, we'll leave you with one final thought. If intelligence agencies were involved in shaping the news in the past, what does that mean for how we understand historical events? It's something to think about, right? Until next time, happy deep diving.